Black Scully on check. Got a little Myrtle Beach hoodie on check. Actually going there in a few weeks for my birthday. Welcome to another marvelous episode. Today we're going to talk about this ESPN's must-see 8 games this year. Super excited for the list. I thought overall they did a pretty decent job. There are a few games I will switch here and there, and I'll tell you the games that I would replace those with. But by and large, fantastic job by ESPN. Also, we're going to talk about Lane Kiffin. He's building a winner in Oxford, and I think this is a team that people are paying attention to. I mean, you will have to be under a rock if you're not paying attention to them. But I believe they can possibly have a college football playoff berth in 2024. Governor of College Football, hashtag GoCFB, CFB Nation, your only college football destination. Let's get it. Governor of College Football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's
Two great
CJ on
defensive
the
minds.
track.
They have to be better on that side of Alrighty, so the first game that is on this ESPN's must-watch games of 2024 list is a Week 1 matchup between Miami and Florida. And this game used to be an annual game from the year of 1944 to 1987. And if you watch 30 for 30, I love 30 for 30. I love, especially when they do that college football documentaries. And they did a U documentary. There's a player on there who was like, well, at least Florida State plays this every year. And it was a knock at Florida. And many people assume, especially down there in Coral Gables, that Florida Gators were scared of them. That's why they stopped playing them. Now, I haven't been the only person to say this. Many people have said this. I know Lake Kick Johnson said it. I know Joel Klatt have said it. I believe who else was it that said it? It slipped my mind, but there's been plenty of people that believe, and I'm a big believer in this, that the people who run college football kind of don't like college football. We have a lot of people that kind of figure out things that really don't like it. But why is a game of two teams that have been great? Like, you can't tell a story of college football without either one of these teams, and they're in decent location from one another. Why do they play so infrequently? It never made sense to me. So whether you're buying the fact that Florida was scared because how dominant Miami was, I don't think I buy that. I think it is what the old ball coach Steve Spurrier once said, that neither team is willing to make a sacrifice. You think of college football, you think of the home games that you want, the non-conference games that you schedule. And typically when you get annual games, it's home and away. Like, so if it was home this year, you'll be away next year. I think that's truly what it is. But when we look at this matchup, I think this is going to be a damn good matchup. You got two programs that have had solid recruiting cycles. We're talking about two of the top 12 teams as it pertains to recruiting for this past cycle. And with that, you got two talented rosters, two young rosters, but you still have two coaches who can arguably be on a hot seat after this year. We've certainly seen some of the mishaps that Mario Cristobal have had since he returned to Coral Gables. And I think that this could be a game that can be an exciting game. I mean, you got Graham Mertz, Cam Ward making his debut. That's going to be exciting. But I'm not even sure if this is the best game of Week 1. Because guess what else we get Week 1? We get LSU and USC Week 1. You might not think that's a great game. Yes, Miami and Florida, classic games where we get them, we enjoy them, but it happens so infrequently. I can't say that, if these two games are on at the same time, granted they're not, because the LSU and USC game is a Sunday night game, and then the Miami and Florida game is a Saturday game. But you also got Clemson versus UGA. So Clemson and UGA, this is a spoiler alert, not making this list is very telling. I don't know if people think this game is just going to be like one of those 88 and out the gate type games where Georgia just dominates them, but Dabo's going to have his team ready. And, of course, we talked about Dabo a lot in the last episode. He does things his way, and that's his prerogative at the end of the day. He's going to have his team ready. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think they'll be competitive, but I'm just surprised that, one, that their game didn't make the list, and that their game that did make the list probably isn't even the best game in Week 1. Let's go to the second game on this list. The second game on this list is a surefire lock. Texas is traveling to Michigan. Week 2, very reminiscent of when Texas marched into Tuscaloosa last year and got a victory versus Alabama. This surefire lock, it's going to be a great game. Steve Sarkisian is just a master of play calling. He's an assassin when he's on that sideline. The Sharon Moore era beginning in Ann Arbor. So this is a tough early test. Week 2. I know a lot of times we looked at the schedule last year, not we the media, but a lot of times we and the fans will look at schedules and be like, oh, this team didn't have the toughest non-conference schedule. This team, it's kind of changing because we're getting a lot of these Big Ten SEC matchups. So this is just going to be one of those great matchups. Texas has a lot of return in production, got better with the portal this year as well. Michigan is losing a lot of production, so we'll see how both of these teams look in week 2. And just keep in mind when you're watching some of these games, national championships are won on week 1 and week 2. People were ready to write Alabama off after Texas did what they did, and they still made the college football playoff. And they were a few plays away from being in the national championship. Game number 3 on this list is a week 5 matchup, Georgia at Alabama. A lot of times we get these in the conference championship. They've just been the 2 best teams in the SEC, the class of the SEC, if we've been honest. Kirby Smart, probably the best coach in college football. I don't think many people argue that. Nick Saban is gone. The Kalen DeBoer era starts, and week 5 is going to get interesting. Here's the thing about the schedule makers and how dope this was. Both of these teams are idle on week 4. But Alabama has a hell of a matchup in week 3. They got to travel to Madison, Wisconsin to play the Badgers. That's going to be a daggone good game. And the fact that it's on a roll in Madison, that's going to be a scary matchup. And I believe in week 3, Georgia plays Kentucky. So both of these teams are playing tough teams on week 3, idle. So they're going to get 2 weeks to prepare for this game. And I think we're only going to get the best from these teams. And this will be an early measuring stick game for Kalen DeBoer. And pretty much his regime at Alabama. Lock. Last 2 games were lock. Great job, ESPN. Texas at Michigan. Georgia versus Alabama. The next game on their list is a week 7 matchup. Ohio State travels to Eugene, and they're going to try to return the favor when Oregon marched into Columbus in 2021. Mario Cristobal, the head coach then, and they were able to get a victory in Columbus. I definitely didn't see that coming this year. So Ohio State, who has one of the best constructed rosters of all of college football, they have some tests. And to get a test like this, going to Eugene, Dan Lanning, it seemed like in the biggest games, Dan Lanning just gives us a masterful clip. The way he preps his team, the speeches he gives to his teams right before these games, I'm guaranteeing that Dan Lanning is going to give us a clip and that we're going to eat up on social media. Next, week 8, Georgia goes to Texas. What is going on here? This college football season has so many great games in this week 8 game. Like I said, this has been back to back to back to back. The Texas at Michigan, Georgia at Alabama, Ohio State at Oregon, Georgia at Texas. These games cannot be argued. Sark versus Kirby Smart. That's one hell of a matchup. And then we're really going to see, can Texas match the physicality of the SEC? When you look at the SEC in totality, that is a physical conference. Coming from the Big 12, this is not a disrespect to the Big 12, but some people take the word finesse as a disrespectful word, as the 49ers did when Bill Walsh was running the West Coast. It's a finesse conference. It is what it is. You're coming from a finesse conference to a physical conference. There will be a learning curve there. You got to learn how to be physical, but Steve Sarkisian and company have built this team the right way, so it's going to be damn good. The next game on this list is debatable. We got Florida State at Notre Dame, week 11. I think when you look at Notre Dame, their independent school, their prestige is just so unmatched. National TV every week. And I believe that sometimes the name is bigger than the game. And that's no disrespect. I think Marcus Freeman did a great job while he was there. Brian Kelly did a phenomenal job while he was there. But sometimes the name is just bigger than the game. And Florida State, damn good team. We saw what Coach Norvell did last season, 13-0 in a regular season, plus conference championship. And then, of course, we saw the ugly loss to Georgia in the bowl game. I think this will be a good measuring stick for both of these teams, but I feel like that this game is kind of added in there, in my opinion, for diversity. We don't just want all Big Ten and SEC games. So this game was like a diversity game. I think the LSU and USC game could be on more deserving on this list. I think the Clemson versus Georgia game could be more deserving on this list, but I think, like I said, some of this is just they want diversity in the game. So, looking at it, is it a good game? Will it be a good game? Be a highly competitive game? Two coaches I have a lot of respect and admiration for, but I believe that this is a game that is purely on there for diversity. Another game that I think that could be on this list over this game, and some of you may get upset at me, and that's that Utah-Arizona game. I got that marked on my calendar. That's going to be a daggone good game. The fact that Arizona was able to retain T-Mac and Noah Fafita, still going to be a very good team this year. So I think that game could be more deserving than this game. Week 14, Michigan versus Ohio State. This is a no-brainer every year, but I believe that there's going to be so much talk this week. We're going to look at Sharon Moore, first time at head coach. Granted, he beat them as the interim, but this is without the interim tag, while Harbaugh was on suspension. This is going to be a damn good matchup. And all of this week, there's going to be a lot of pressure. There's going to be a lot of intensity because Ryan Day, 0-3 his last matchups against Michigan, and some of these games were just outright beatdowns, like physical beatdowns. I believe that's why we've seen Ohio State construct their roster in a way this year. They want to be a lot more physical this upcoming season. They want to be a lot more balanced this upcoming season. And getting a coordinator like Bill O'Brien, love him, I hate him, the guy going to hold his players accountable. I don't care what you say about him. He holds his players accountable. I think the talk this week is you cannot lose 4 straight to Michigan. And you think what that does to the psyche. You have no idea what some of these coaches go through. Look at somebody like Lou Holtz, one of the great minds of college football. Love what he was able to do at his tenure in Notre Dame. But what he said deeply affected Ryan Day. He did not like those comments. And you can tell at the end of the game he was a little bit emotional. People were teasing him for it, but I don't think there's nothing wrong with emotional passion. Same thing with Sharon Moore when he was crying after the Penn State victory. Yeah, people was laughing at it, but like I said, I don't think there's nothing wrong with emotion and or passion. How many of us have been in a game, whether it's pee-wee, middle school, high school, you lose a championship game or you lose a game that knocks you out of the playoffs, if tears ain't coming out of your eyes, you don't have a pulse, period. So this game coming up, into this game, week 14, it's going to be a lot of talk. Ohio State is going to have to mute the noise and be able to go into Ann Arbor and get a win. That is not going to be easy. So let's look at this next game. Is Utah at Oklahoma State. I believe this is another diversity game. Not that I don't think it's going to be a good game. I just believe that there are more deserving games. I mean, I mentioned a couple of them earlier. LSU versus USC. Also, the Iron Bowl may be more deserving than this, but they don't want that SEC Big Ten bias. So it's another diversity game. Also, Clemson and Georgia, I think, will be a more deserving game on this list. But overall, great job, ESPN. I think you guys got a lot of this right. Moving right along. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We are on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Governor College Football is on there. Also, College Football Showdown, a show with me and my boy Jalen Wilson. 2 episodes a week. I give you 2 episodes of this a week. Overreaction off season when we call it Overreaction Live during the season. You get 1 episode of that. Also get Guru on GOAT. Hey man, I wasn't that great in math, but it sounded like I just named 5 or 6 shows that I'm giving you guys consistently every week. I wanted to turn the temperature up a little bit this year as it pertained to releasing a lot more content. So Lane Kiffin is building a winner in Oxford, Mississippi. Let's kind of look at what he's done since he's been there. We're going to omit the COVID year. COVID year was a weird year. I mean, I still watch college football because I love it, but just not seeing the pageantry of the fans, some of the pregame rituals that some of these schools have, especially in the Deep South, and postgame rituals, just not being able to see a lot of that. It was heartbreaking, but, college football definitely gave me normalcy during that time period. So we'll still omit the COVID year. 10-3 in 2021. 8-5 in 2022. Had some winnable games. They let slip. And then 11-2 in 2023. You look at the 11-2, you think, okay, that Bama game, they were a little embarrassed. Yeah, it's only a 14-point deficit. They were a little embarrassed. And the Georgia game just got out of hand. But, when you look at the schedule, this year they don't play Bama. I think their toughest game on the road is at LSU. That's a very winnable game. Probably be another shootout. Very winnable game. Also, they play Georgia, but the Georgia game is at home. I know they travel to Florida, and there's a couple other games that they have, but they're going to be favorites in a lot of their games. It wouldn't surprise me, like the spread, unless they start losing a bunch of games, this team is going to be favored in a lot of games. So they had the top transfer class in this cycle. They had 1 5-star, 7 4-stars, and 9 3-stars. Key additions in edge, Princely, Meelan from Florida. They got defensive lineman Walter Nolan from Texas A&M, who was the number 1 player in the portal. They got instantly better in the trenches, and that's how you win in the SEC. Running back Logan Diggs from LSU, by the way, of Notre Dame. That was a huge get as well, especially with the Kenshawn Junkins departure. Nathaniel Kelpo from Washington. Washington won the Joe Moore this year for the best offensive line unit in college football. Lane Kiffin is building his team the right way. I think a lot of us really appreciate Lane Kiffin just because of the moxie. He's a stand-up guy. I remember when the conversation got leaked, it was what it was. He said what he needed to say. I forgot a member of the media, and typically I don't try to go against my peers in the media, but when Lane Kiffin owned that reporter, when the reports were after the 2022 season that Lane Kiffin was going to Auburn, that was just priceless. Like, I love what Lane Kiffin does. I love what he's doing here, and he's definitely going to build a winner in Oxford, Mississippi. As I always like to say, there are no moral victories in a sport that survive and advance. That's why college football has the greatest regular season. And until next time, you already know what it is. 1. Governor of college football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's CJ
Great defensive minds. They have to be better on that side of the ball.